Welcome to Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debbie Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to my show. You have just reached me if you're watching live. You're at Balanced Life with me, Debbie Carlin Boyle. This is Conversations that Connect to a Healthier You. And I have a conversation like that today, so stick around because we really want you to get involved and become part of that conversation. And I'm going to tell you a couple of ways that you can do that. If you want to give us a call and become part of the conversation, or you make a comment, ask a question, the number here is area code 323-524-2599. That's 323-524-2599. Give us a call. You might feel a little shy about it, but we welcome you and we'll make you feel comfortable by getting involved in the conversation, because that's why I call my show with a tagline, Conversations Connecting to a Healthier You. It's not just the conversation that I have with my health and wellness expert that's on, but also your part in the conversation with your questions, your comments. It keeps it going, and we have a more organic, if you will, kind of conversation under that topic. So we'd love to get you involved. If you can't call us and you still have a question or a comment, then I invite you to my Facebook page or my YouTube channel where we're streaming live, which is Balanced Life by Debbie as well. And there, you in the comment section, you can ask your question or make a comment. I try to look at these during the show so we can address them during the show, but if not, we look at them after the show, and if it's for my guest, I get a hold of my guest to make sure they've seen it and they'll answer. So always check back. And I invite you to go to my YouTube channel and to subscribe, and there you're going to find a lot of content. You'll find so many health and wellness experts talking about anything that you can think of: sleep, diet, exercise, the latest greatest products that are for longevity with quality, all the things that we need to put together to age young. I've done a show on it, because between my two YouTube channels, I have probably 300 shows or more. So I invite you to find the subject that resonates with you and go ahead and click on there. And I even answer questions 2, 3, 4, 5, even 7 years later, because that's how long I've been doing this. So I'm inviting you to do that. I also want to tell you a little bit about myself. If you're a new listener and you don't know, I am a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and a health and nutrition coach. So I try to help people create longevity by finding the balance in their life with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. So there's a lot of things that need to come together in life. Find the alignment, find the balance that give us joy, that create health. And once you feel good, you'll look good. And when you feel good and look good, it resonates. Other people pick up on it. And now you're living a life of joy and longevity. And sometimes, and I think everybody needs a coach, sometimes you need a coach to help you get where you want to be. I think anything in life that you want to create or get better at, even the GOATs of the world have coaches to help them come to the top and be better. So I'm here to help you. Let's say your finances aren't in alignment, but everything else that you're doing is, or you just can't get motivated to exercise. Well, I'm going to help you get there one small actionable step at a time. And I work with groups as well. I do workshops and I do talks, and I also work individually. So if you go to my website, which is Balanced Life by Debbie, DEBI.com. There you're going to see a pop-up right away, and it is for a free fall detox. It's kind of a hard thing to say, but and what it is, it's 3 days. 3 recipes a day to help you get lighter on your feet. And there's a market list with it, and you can just go and grab that off my website, and you're going to feel better, I guarantee, in 3 days. It isn't anything like a juice fast or a water fast or fasting in any way. It's satiating, delicious recipes and food that I know you'll enjoy. Real food, not processed food, the real thing. And I invite you to just go grab that or say hi to me, because there's a place to do that on my website as well. I'd love to talk to you and have a conversation about anything that might be lower on the totem pole of the alignment of life. So now we're going to get on with the show. I really hope you enjoy today, and I really hope that you do want to get involved in the show as well. So on to the introductions. Put simply, authenticity means you're true to your own personality, values, and spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. You're honest with yourself and with others, and you take responsibility for your mistakes. Your values and your ideals and your actions all align. My guests today help people do just that. Mechelle Wingle is the founding executive of the Wholeness Network. Mechelle is a gifted intuitive healer, mentor, and coach. She is continually learning and developing her gifts, and expanding truth is her delight. Mechelle has been featured in Women's Health magazine, as well as several television segments. Her take on weight loss is revolutionary. She helps clients understand and take action, and at the same time supports them in learning to love themselves as they are. She is the author of the book, A Mentality Workout: Exercises for Permanent Weight Loss. Mechelle is certified in natural healing, a master energy therapist, a Holy Love Karuma Reiki master, a master of heart-centered therapy, brain reflex, cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as a treating trauma master. So let's talk about uncovering our authentic selves. Will you please welcome my guest, Mechelle Wingle, to the show? Hi, Mechelle.
Hi, how are you? I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. And you are in Utah, correct?
I am in Utah. We are freezing in Utah.
Is it snowing there right now? Is it snowing?
It's not snowing, but there's a little bit of snow on the ground, and it's just kind of frozen there.
Okay, so winter has started in the fall. So
it has.
Yes,
It's been cold.
We're fall and winter.
It's been colder.
Yeah, but it's so
Yep,
beautiful
yep.
there. You get the clear, clean skies, and there's so
Yes,
many
we love it.
things about Utah that I absolutely. Used to. Well, I was a television commercial producer for the better part of 30
Yeah.
years, and I shot a lot of commercials in Colorado and Utah. And Moab was very famous. Before we had CGI
Yeah.
the way it is now, Moab was really famous for car commercials. So I did more than a few there
Yeah.
and in Colorado. So I'm familiar with the area in that sense.
Yep.
And then my daughter went to school in Colorado. So that we did a lot of, crossover trips and things like that. So it's beautiful.
Yep.
I envy you. I really do. It's so nice.
Yeah.
And
It is. It has such a cross reference of a lot of different kind of things, and so it's great. Yeah, it's great.
that it offers. It's beautiful, and it's close enough to LA that you're a hop, skip, and a jump over to whatever our culture
Right.
is here. You can, see shows and do all kinds of things here that you can be here pretty quickly and easily. I want to know a little bit
Yeah.
about your background. Speaking of this, I mean, we just got an introduction, and we know about your education, and but I always like to get to the why. And so I'm curious where you're from, where you were born, what your childhood was like, schooling that, what led you in the direction to start this Wholeness Network, and to also get into the health and wellness, whole body interaction world.
Yep. Well, if you had caught me 10, 11, 12 years ago, I would have been not just, but I was a mom. I had 4 children. I was doing the mom thing. I was getting up and going to PTA meetings and taking kids to school and to their, soccer games, all those kind of things. And I thought everything was fine and my life was going to be great. And
But
then I
wait,
have
go
what I
back.
call
Go back a little bit,
it was a-
though. I want to know where you were born. I want to go back to your childhood.
Well, okay, so childhood. I was further back. Yeah, I was born here in Utah. I was born here in Utah.
Okay,
I was born on the same day in the same hospital as my husband. We were born on the same day in the same hospital.
Wow.
And kind of interesting. So you would think, everything would be easy going when you have that kind of start. But yeah, so I grew up, I was the youngest in my family. I was kind of the extra little caboose at the end. So a lot of my siblings were older and kind of involved in teenage type stuff when I was little. In fact, my mom called me her teenage baby because I was always doing teenage stuff, even when I was just little.
Oh, so cute.
So yeah. So yeah, kind of,
what did you study?
I lived in the same town.
What did you study in school?
What did I
Yeah. What was your interest when you were young? I'm curious.
I played music.
You did?
I started playing the violin when I was 5 and then moved on to the cello. And then, I was good in school. I got good grades and I felt like I was pretty average, but it wasn't until like my 40s that I started to have memories of things that I had experienced and thought about and realized that other kids my age did not have those kinds of things, or that was unusual, So for instance, when my grandma passed away at 5, I remember telling my mom how I would see her, or, how I saw her, and I described what her clothing looked like. And luckily I had a good mom who believed me.
Wow.
But I didn't realize that was different. As weird as that is, I didn't realize that was different until I got a little older. And but always very sensitive. I was very sensitive. We would go to my brother's football games, and it was always really tense inside my body, very kind of stressful and nervous. And my parents would have to do a lot to keep me feeling safe. And I thought I was just shy. I thought I was just, my dad would call me bashful. I thought I was just a little shy person. And as I got older, I realized, things are different for me. I remember in 3rd grade.
Did you think you were an intuitive? Did you feel like you were?
I didn't.
No.
Not when I was little.
No.
But now I do.
Yeah. Now that you know what it is and how you can define it, but you didn't understand it. Yeah.
No, I have no idea what it was. I remember understanding my teachers on a deep level, like my memory of my teachers, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. I have memories of like their lives that I don't know. I wouldn't actually know. I wouldn't actually have that.
Wow.
I shouldn't have that. Right. Like
that's intense.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it's just something that you just kind of move on to the next thing, maybe even resist, I would say. Maybe even there was a lot of resistance there, just kind of keep myself busy.
It probably scared you because it scared you, knowing what you didn't know where that was coming from. That would be frightening, actually, as you grow, especially through your teen years. That's very scary. I'm curious, did you know your husband all the way through your school years? Did he go to, no, he didn't go to the same schooling or anything?
It's so funny.
Okay.
His dad worked for the military and they moved to Japan in junior high, and my sister was over there and they actually met in Japan, and then kind of realized that they were, hey, my sisters, you're born on the same day as my sister. And then we ended up going, my senior year of high school, I decided to go on to college. So I did college my senior year of high school, and so did he. And we met ourselves in college. We had a class together.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And then you discovered where and when you were born. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Now, so the reason why I asked you about your younger childhood is so you could tell that story, which I didn't know about, but I always find we sit where we sit now as adults and usually get into something, or we actually, have a lot of friends in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that have pivoted and changed careers about for a passion that they may have had their whole life
Yeah.
and just didn't act out on it because they were too busy raising a family, earning a living, or whatever it may be, that they put, whatever that passion or interest was aside, and then have gone back to it. So that's why I always like to hear that backstory. And
Yeah.
and so at what point in your life did you realize, yes, I have this ability and I should actually do something with it?
It was it was a lesson in authenticity. It was something I was resistant to. I would really appreciate it in other people, and I was like, oh, that person can do that, oh, that's so great. And it was just to really understand to get to my own authenticity. To be honest, it was a little bit of a struggle at first. I kind of fought it. And then once I allowed myself to question and give myself some understanding about those childhood experiences, and recognizing that maybe they were a little unusual, claiming that for myself was really liberating. It was really like coming home to myself, to just be myself. And it's an ongoing process because there's so many people that are intuitive, and they all have their own processes, and they all do things their own way. And it's really easy to kind of think you're not doing the same thing or the right thing because it might be different than someone else's. And being an intuitive is interesting because we can make it look really easy when we can get answers and understandings for other people's experiences. But the information comes in and we're doing this interpreting. We're actually interpreting what's happening. And sometimes our own interpretations will get in the way. And I have to be okay with myself. I have to be comfortable in my own skin, to where I don't just back away and say, oh, that didn't work, or that was wrong, or that didn't make sense. And I've had, it's like, so now I'm getting to more comfortable with asking questions out there, which helps me understand where the things are coming. Because sometimes I'll see an image will come to me and I will want to figure it out, where if I just, if I say something even less descriptive, they have a better answer for it than I do. It's really kind of strange, but it's a process, and there's not too many people that can just tell you exactly how to do it. And so it's a lot of getting quiet. It's a lot of doing my own work, and making sure that I am a clean vessel to receive information, and to really work on my own authenticity. It is, it's a practice within myself to really get clear on myself, because that helps me feel the difference in someone else.
Right, to help others. Which brings me to the question, which is part of our subject tonight, today, is uncovering our authentic selves. What does it take for someone to do that? You did it, and you continue to do it for yourself, what you were just saying. But what does someone, need to do? What are the practices? How does it work?
Yeah.
How would you break that down?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because the difference between what we do to show up and try and be authentic, sometimes there's a fine line sometimes between authenticity and fitting in for some people. And what we have to start at is, what's authentic is it's nothing that anybody else can tell us. It's nothing that somebody else can give us. It's always within ourselves. And to understand where, if we are in our authentic self, it comes down to the sensations within the body. The sensations within our body will tell us for real if we're balanced, if we're authentic, if we are, if we're in danger, if we're excited, if we're sad. It's about sensations in the body. And so many times, because of so many different reasons, there's a lot of body shame. We shut down our body. There's a lot of trauma. We shut down our body. There's a lot of reasons why we might not receive those sensations, because we have shut down the communication that our body was. When I sat there and was journaling, I do a lot of journaling and listening for information. And it was when I first, I was trying to figure out how to tell people I had lost my weight, because everybody wanted to know how I had lost my weight. And one time I was sitting there and thinking, it's emotional, and how we say I'm an emotional eater. That's very common for someone to say, I'm an emotional eater. And yet the thought came to my mind. It was almost like a voice that I heard that almost said, what if that emotional eating was stored in an emotional body? And here I am trying to work with my physical body when the issue is in my emotional body. And maybe there's an idea of it being in my mental body. Maybe it can be in my spiritual body. It's something that I have to get quiet about and really feel into how that feels. And sometimes the resistance is a clue, because for me, I was resistant. So when I start to feel that resistance, I've got to move forward and move into it to find it.
So what is it, the resistance feel like? Is it anxiety? What comes up when you feel into it? What I know it's different for everybody, but I guess what I'm asking is giving examples of allowing your body to tell you, so you can move into it instead of pushing it aside. What kind of things should we be looking for?
That's a great question. So one of the practices that you can do over and over again is to feel what emotions feel like. So bring up an emotion, joy, grief, whatever it is, any emotion, and just go inside your body and feel where those sensations show up in your body. Feel if there's heat, feel if there's a tingling, feel if there's, just feel the actual sensations. And you can even begin to have almost a conversation with this part of yourself that you can, one of the things that we do in heart center therapy is we find a way to give it a shape and give it a color so that we can have some context around the feeling, that we can kind of dialogue with it. Sometimes we even give it a pair of eyes and we ask the eyes to tell us the emotion that they're having. It's getting very clear with those sensations, and recognizing sometimes we have to ask ourselves, when it comes to resistance, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this my feeling that I'm having? Or is this a feeling that I feel like I'm supposed to have? Or is this a feeling that my partner has? And when we ask ourselves questions are the key, because we will have the slightest reaction. And we want to move towards sensations that feel good, and anything that feels bad, we ask more questions. What is that about? That's kind of the resistance. So for me, a resistance would be, kind of a tightening in probably my solar plexus, right below my heart, above my belly button. I'll get like a tightness, and I'll feel some resistance. I might get a headache. I might get a headache in the back of my head. That's a really good place for me to hold some resistance. Sometimes I will hold my breath. I will notice that I'm not breathing clearly or fully, and I'll clench my jaw a little bit, and I'm just in some resistance. And it's a trick to try and catch it in real time, because a lot of times we just are so quick to do something to make that go away. Those uncomfortable feelings, we want them to go away.
Right.
And yet sometimes they can be a teacher. Sometimes they are our teacher for sure.
And to allow them to persist, and kind of acknowledge them. What is the next step once you do that? So you allow them, it's your body telling you that you're resisting and not living, or finding your authenticity. What are the next steps? How do you move forward once you do acknowledge?
Yeah. So one of the things that's helpful is to say to that part, we call it parts, this part of me. And that's helpful too, is because sometimes most of the time, we're going to have more than one thing going on. A part of us is going to like it. A part of us is not. So we can acknowledge the fact that this one little part is resistant, let's say. So we can say to that part, we can even it within ourselves, just almost, and I say it out loud, like, I see you. I see you, resistance,
So you're acknowledging.
I can feel you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
is there anything you need? What do you need? And it's helpful even to me. I was taught to say, what do you need, sweetheart? What
So
do you
you're
need,
kind to
sweet love?
yourself. So you're being
Right.
kind to
So,
you.
so kind.
Yeah.
So kind.
When you have
Yeah.
something going on like that. Okay.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
makes
So
sense.
what do you need? Um, and is there a lot of times the resistance is protecting something, so we can say, is there something that you would like to share or protect me? And a lot of times a memory comes up. A memory. This is very much heart-centered therapy. And we can either let the memory arise, or we can allow ourselves to kind of look at our lives as a timeline and travel back and land in a spot. And when we land in that spot, we can look around, and most often we can find within that memory a piece of ourselves that maybe got hurt or was struggling in that moment. And this protector part said, never again. So it puts this kind of protector up to help to prevent us from ever being in a situation like that again. And these situations can be so quick. They can be a look that somebody gives us and we interpret it some way, It doesn't have to be, there's something called big T traumas that are those big things that we all recognize. And then there's those little T traumas, those things that are just because we have different personalities and are different and interact with people that are different. Sometimes we have these kind of traumatic moments that anchor in us kind of a belief or a hurt. And luckily these parts of us go to work and they protect us from ever going there again. But once we shut down and protect, we also, it's kind of like if you put on a bunch of armor, you're going to be protected from something going on. But when it comes time to play, when it comes time to have fun, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So
you've got the armor up. You're not releasing. I want to dig into trauma. But we're going to take a quick break, really quick, and come back and we'll take a break from one of my sponsors, and we're going to talk about what trauma is. You talk about the big and the little, and how that plays a huge part in what you're saying right now in blocking us from becoming our true to ourselves and living in alignment, which is what it's all about. And then we can kind of get to the deeper in that. On how to do that. And then I want to talk all about your Wholeness Network, because it's fabulous what you offer people. So we'll be back right after this message from one of my sponsors. Cicera Olio de Oliva is an extra virgin olive oil company with a mission to provide high-quality, current-season Italian oils to families. They have partnered with 2-centuries-old family farms in the Tuscany region of Italy to grow, harvest, and bottle their amazing oils. Founded by a nutritionist who has a love of the land, sustainability, nutritious foods, and of course, Italy, they strive for peak freshness and high nutritional content in every single bottle. All of their oils are current season, extra virgin olive oil, bringing you a true branch to bottle experience, and I know firsthand. So, for an offer, go to www.cesiroliva.com and enter Balanced Life 10 for 10% off. I know you're going to love this healthy and delicious addition to just about any meal. Okay, we're back. We're back with my guest, Mechelle Wingle, and we're talking about uncovering your authentic self, living with alignment and balance, and how to do that. Michelle's going to give us the breakdown. We're talking about the things that are causing us to not do that, and then we're going to talk about how to overcome and get to that in this next half of the show. So if you want to join our conversation, we'd love to have you. If you're listening live, the number here is 323-524-2599. call in, ask a question, make a comment, get involved in our conversation. We'll make it three-way if you like, rather than just back and forth with Mechelle and I. If you're not listening live, you're welcome to make a comment, ask a question on whatever platform of mine that you're listening to. And right there, we'll get back to you post-show. So thank you for joining us. So we were talking about trauma. And can you give us a definition of it before we move forward? What is trauma?
It's great to ask that question, because a lot of times we associate trauma with, first of all, a physical injury, some kind of trauma to the body. And that's true. And a lot of otherwise we think about an event, but what trauma really is trauma really is a response that our body has to things that overpower or overwhelm the nervous system. And so that's where it can be different for different people. Like when I was a little kid, being at the football game was overwhelming and overpowered my nervous system. And so I would kind of shut down. And so when anything that puts us in that place where where our nervous system is overwhelmed, we usually, our body responds and carries trauma. And usually anything that is even close to that will come in, and then our body will have a response because it's already had this trauma. And so now anything that's close to that, anything that feels even familiar to that particular experience will cause that trauma response in our body to try and get us out of there as quickly as we can.
Right.
But sometimes it shows up when it's not supposed to show up. It's there. And one of the stories I tell is I was helping my niece with her wedding, and we were cleaning up at the end of the night, and I was driving home really late in the middle of the night, and I was on the freeway. I looked in my rearview mirror, and there was a car just so close to me. I knew I was a little bit in danger. So I kind of sped up, and this car pulled out to the side of me, and there was like some confrontation going on. It was really kind of terrifying for a few minutes. And then the car drove off, and I was left there. I went home. It was really scary. I told my husband, and I even told him, I says, because I was trauma trained, I says, I think I need to go drive that piece of the freeway again to integrate that trauma, to kind of release that trauma.
Oh, interesting.
But I didn't get a chance to do that. And sure enough, a year later, I was picking up my phone and looking through Instagram and saw my niece saying, happy anniversary, happy 1-year anniversary. And my body had a reaction. I was sweating. I was anxious. I was uncomfortable. And because I was trauma trained, I knew it was happening. But I recognized that if I hadn't been trauma trained, I would have been quickly, a story would have come in. My mind would have come in. I would have been maybe jealousy, anger, frustration. So you've got the four trauma responses, which are fight, which is an anger. I could have had an anger response, like what's going on? Or I bothered because there's a sock on the ground, and I use that to dispel the energy. Or freeze is another one, and I just I would get really quiet. Maybe I would like isolate. I would just kind of be frozen, not be able to function very well. Or flight. That's another one, flight. So I just busy myself, get myself so busy, and just to expel that little bit of energy. Or appease is another one, or fawn is another trauma response. So I would just start helping other people, sacrificing myself, not paying attention to my own needs or desires or wants, and just let myself work for other people, trying to dispel this energy. But because I didn't address the trauma about what it was, then the next time anything close is going to come up, I'm going to get that again. And then pretty soon I detach from the actual event, and I'm just spending my life trying to manage when I want to busy myself, or when anger overcomes me, or when I freeze and can't function. And I think so many of us spend a lot of time in a lot of those.
Yeah, that becomes accumulative. Yeah, because especially, and I know you work a lot with people on their relationships, especially in relationships, you'll have one of these, or maybe the same response every time, because it's bringing something up. And then who's ever in front of you, let's say your spouse or your significant other, and guess who's going to get the brunt of it? Them.
Right.
And
Right.
because you haven't dealt with what you need to deal with, so you don't have that response every time. And I think that's accumulative, and that could really end relationships because
Yep.
the person's fed up with these kinds of responses. This is
Right.
combative or whatever it is, or you're ignoring, something we need to discuss or whatever.
Right.
Whichever one of those responses you take gets old after a while to a significant other, I'm sure. So I could see how that could come up in relationships. And as you were saying, the different responses, I'm sure everybody's going through their head, we're all
Yeah.
recognizing what we do, and that this is probably what's the trauma that I'm trying to forget or hide or not deal with. So what are some of the ways that people can recognize, and then what do you do to help people not have one of these responses and actually deal with them? Like, what are some physical, actual, applicable things that people can do once they recognize?
Yeah, well, and first it is to recognize, because our protectors, our brain, whatever you want to call it, wants us. It's quick with a present situation to justify those feelings. I mean, so we have what's called an emotional flashback, and we can go into a emotional flashback, and we are having an interaction. Like I say, the socks on the floor, that really did happen. But my response is elevated because it's also trying to just get rid of that energy that's there from the trauma before. So to recognize when we are in a trauma state. So one of the things we can recognize is that when we are in trauma, time is gone. That's why it feels like that memory from the past is current. So time shuts down the part of our brain that looks at logic. So a lot of times when we get into language that says always, never, those kind of messages, or when we kind of figure out there's something there's something that's pulling me into a kind of a trauma response or an integrated experience, because we're never going to forget that experience, but it's going to integrate, and it's not going to bring up the anxiety like it did before. Like if I saw a picture of my niece's wedding, I would have no reaction because I've integrated it. Although I remember that scary experience and I can talk about it, but I'm not having my physiology isn't reacting to it. So to get clear on recognizing it in the moment, it takes some time.
It's like practice. You have to.
It's a
you
practice.
Have to. It's also being, which I'm sure you work with clients with. I work with mine. Is being mindful. I mean, being aware, being, living that you don't numb yourself to things. And those are other practices that you have to do to sort of undo. Meditation for me works really well. I talk about that with my clients so they can tap into things that they may have pushed aside otherwise, and self-care, and self-care, another word like authenticity, it gets thrown around a lot, but that's important. And what I said at the top of the show, how you eat, the way you feed yourself, whether you move or not, whether you're sleeping, what is your quality of sleep like, what is your social life like, and are you challenging yourself to educate yourself and to keep growing and to kind of go forward with things that may seem tough. Can you go over the obstacles on that? And if you can't, then you might want to look back and see what's holding you back. And you've got to start, taking care of you to dig in, to get to that level, to get to that next step. It's really, I think, important because I think anger, and we see a lot of anger in our world today. I think anger comes from absorbing things, hearing things, and not really getting to who your true essence and being and why you're here. We're all here. We all want love. We all want to share love. We all want to give love. But when you let all these things pile up and then you're not taking care of yourself on top of it, you're eating poorly, it's going to make you angrier because now you're going to have a lot of pain. You're going to have gut issues, which lead to brain issues. You're going to have so much built up. If you just undo all of that and get back to what our authenticity is, which is love to share, then you're able to live a much better, joyful life of longevity with quality, I think. And so it's a hard one. And that's another reason why I said at the top of the show, working with a coach, someone like you, helps you recognize these things and helps you work through these things that you otherwise you either get stuck in maybe a relationship. It can ruin relationships, not just with a spouse, but with friends and work colleagues or work situations. Or maybe you can't lose the weight, or there's something holding you back from moving forward. And that's where coaches who is an expert in these kind of things can really help you push that aside and can make a huge difference in your life, which I'm sure you're doing for many.
Yeah, well, I agree, because so many times when we're working with ourselves, there's such a tendency to belittle ourselves or to put ourselves down. And that's the thing, is if we can look at these parts of us that hurt, or if we can look at these the unmotivation, or if we can look at the hard time with some compassion, with some understanding, going like with your meditations, when those clients of yours go into that meditation and get some information, I would guarantee that it's probably very loving. It's very enlightening. It's very empowering. It's not like this, well, I've just got to do it better, or what's wrong with me, and that kind of thing. But we do that to ourselves. So a good coach comes along and supports you through that, so that we don't go down that rabbit hole, because then we can easily traumatize ourselves. We can easily give ourselves plenty to be frustrated at. So that's what the coach does, keeps you on track, not just to help you, have the motivation, but to have the compassion, to have the understanding about what's really, really going on. Because I think the bottom line, I think everybody makes sense on some level. Like everybody makes sense of their choices, are making sense on some level. If we can go into some of their memories, it makes sense. It is, as hard as that is to hear for some people, like, there's very few people, maybe some majorly mentally ill people, but most of us have, we're trying to navigate the life the best that we can, and some of those choices bump up against other people and cause problems, but and that needs to be dealt with. But there's this, the nervous system is not always kind to everyone else. When we're in anger or we're frustrating, that can come out onto other people, and it can be difficult to take that responsibility if we're just running that system all the time. If that system's just going to come up, it's really hard to just bootstrap it or force it to be okay when you've got the nervous system involved, because it's going to override any of those things. And it's funny what you say. I think of, when I think of authenticity, one of the things I think of is the idea of agency. And to be able to have agency, to be able to choose for myself, I have to know myself. And if I hire a real estate agent or a travel agent, and so they become an agent for me, they need to know what I want, what my goals are, where I want to go. They are to act in my best interest, to help me make choices of what I'm going to do. They don't just decide for me. Well, if I'm going to be an agent for myself, then I need to know what my needs are. And a lot of times that's difficult for people, especially women. We're kind of programmed to be needless, but needs are important. And we can get into the hierarchy of needs there. That's a really fascinating thing to look at.
I bet.
And then we have our wants. And wants are things that are that we want and that are special for us. And then there's our desires, those things that we wish for and hope for. And all of those things in my world are of equal value. Your desire is not less important than your need. We want to get our needs met first, but in order to move up those hierarchy of needs, the last one is that self-actualization, which is authenticity. And it is the goal that we're trying to get to, in being able to have agency over our lives, being able to make choices for ourselves and live that balanced life like you're talking about. We've got to know what that takes for us as an individual.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I work with my clients, we start from the beginning on goals, but to understand your goals, and I'm sure this works for you, with you and your clients, you have to understand your why. What is why? Why, for me, why did I decide to change a lucrative career of producing TV commercials for all those years to get into health and wellness and become an entrepreneur and not have the guarantee, finances? And I knew my why because I watched all the people that I loved and cared about around me from a young age get sick and eventually pass away. And it made me think, well, is that my future? My father died in his 40s. So is that what's going to happen to me? And my aunt died right before she turned 60. And that was his sister. And I started to see what has to shift, what has to change, but why would I want it to change? And my why was so I could run around with my great grandchildren and have the energy and the mental capacity to be contemporary with them, to be able to physically keep up with them and mentally keep up with them. And that was my why from the time I was 20. But I got sidetracked into the world of parenting, the world of being a wife, the world of career. And then I just went back to where my original goals were and said, I'm going back to school and I'm going to shift gears. Now I'm trying to, through the podcasting and other things, I'm trying to get a health and wellness show off the ground that it takes everything to another level. So I can merge my production experience with my health and wellness passion. But I knew my why from early on, so I stuck with it. It was always back here until I can move it forward. And I think everybody's got to be there. I think you have to understand why something has to change. Is it because you want to keep your relationship together, or is it because you want to live a joyous life? You want to find joy. You don't want to sit at home and avoid things because of fear. What is causing the fear? You got to go back and figure that out. And I imagine you help people do these kinds of things over and over again. Get to that place where they can live a life of authenticity. To me, is a life of joy. When you're not holding back, when you're not trying to be something you're not, when you're not letting that little devil on your shoulder say, no, you can't, you're not good enough, go back to where you belong, don't get up, procrastinate, don't do this, don't do that. You got to get rid of that. And then you can truly live in where you belong and where you feel that you've conquered. I don't want to say the word conquer because it sounds like, you're in a war with yourself. But in a way we are, because we're up against everything that's coming at us. We're up against all, now we have social media that's pulling stuff at us, and we think, oh, that's what I should look like. That's the product I should be using. That's what I should be doing. Why can't I afford to get the facelift she got? And we live in that world because it's all being thrown at us. And, what we have to do is kind of dial it back and look at all the good and the things that we are and all what we have to offer, and get rid of anything that makes us think. You said earlier about, I talk about this a lot, about fitting in, and make us think we don't fit in, that we don't belong, and that we're in the background, because you're not. We all are of importance, like you were saying earlier. And it's very hard to get people to understand that and realize that, I think.
I think so too. I think because we go into shame so quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I say, if we can look at it as healing, if we can look at it as this is the common ground, and I think also we need to be careful because I know Oprah just wrote a new book where they're talking about happierness versus being happy. People want to be happy, and that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But we need all the emotions actually to live a full and balanced life. You can't have a whole life. I work with the Wholeness Network. That's why we call it wholeness.
Yeah, I want to
It's
ask you
because,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, because we understand that I can't be all of who I am if I don't have all the parts of me with me. Like I have this, even the difficult times added to who I am, and as I embrace more about myself, and as I include all of the parts of me and allow them to feed me and allow me to use those to feed other people, then I have this sense of connection within myself and with others, that's the feeling or the experience that I'm looking for, or that I think most of us are looking for. And so a lot of times we're trying to get rid of and trying to separate from, but there's just some magic when we start to say, okay, I'm going to accept that as
Mm-hmm.
part of my life. I'm going to accept that and see how that feels, feel the resistance. That's the greatest thing to do, like back full circle. If we feel that resistance, like I really don't want that, then we know, if it's hard for us to accept that part of us, whatever that is, whether it's a part of our body, whether it's a part of our experience, when we feel like it's hard to accept that, then we know we've got some healing to do. And it's not just about changing that feeling or stopping that resistance. It's about really going back in and working with the memory of it, the experience of it, the energy of it, to really shift it into something different. It's not just something we can just stop, like, because we just decide to. There's a process to letting our body fully accept it as true, and
I have to agree with you 100%. And in the interest of time, because we've run out, I want you to talk about the Wholeness Network, because you have you've created a platform really where people can dig into each one of those aspects with experts and programs and all kinds of things. Can you talk about that, and then what you have coming up in February? And we can, we'll put everything up in the show notes on my YouTube channel so people can access you. But talk about the network and what it does.
Yeah, thank you. To me, there's just to have the tools available to feel better at any one moment. There's, depending on what we're in the middle of, we need different tools to feel better. So I talk about the Wholeness Network. It's a platform, a streaming platform of videos. I call it, it's like Netflix for wellness, Mm-hmm. So we focus everything: body, mind, spirit, soul, all kinds of videos. We have tapping videos where you can follow along and tap along with me. I actually did those videos. We have it's called rapid eye technology, which is almost uses the same kind of eye movements as EMDR to replace some trauma. We have meditations. We have really interesting concepts people talk about. We have people sharing all kinds of little videos. Usually they're 10 to 15 minutes. They're shorter. But the idea is just anywhere, anytime I need to get back to that balanced self or return to wholeness, we would say, you can pull up a video, watch it really quick, and feel the sensations in your body shift and begin to feel better. And so I have my own podcast, the Wholeness Network podcast, that we kind of bring guests on and kind of talk about. But we are gathering a library full of experts around the globe that share their best knowledge, and we're hoping to get you to be part of that as well.
I would love
so
that. Yeah,
join our network.
Absolutely.
And bring all these experts together and just bring wholeness to the world. Because I feel like my why is, if I can help another. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. I don't even know that. So that's a helper. So I love to help. So if I can help the world feel better, I know that that benefits me, and that benefits you, and that's the best help I can do. So my goal is to provide things for people to continue to grow and expand and heal the parts of us that just kind of get bumped up in this life, and to realize that that's just true for all of us. And we all need tools to get back.
I love that. And a lot of these tools are what we were talking about today that people need, that they can use to start uncovering and living in authenticity. For those that are just listening to us, can you give your website where everything lives?
Yes. So the Wholeness Network is the Wholeness Network .com, and there you can find the membership, all the information about belonging to the membership. It's not that expensive. And then my website is mechellewingle.com, just my name.com. And there's a lot of resources there. Both of those websites have freebies that you can, we send you an awesome freebie. On my website, I send you, it's called a manifesting kit. It gives you all about, there's some NLP, there's some heart center therapy to get your state in a place where it tracks what your desires are. We have a whole energy class that we give away for understanding the energy system of the body with the wholenessnetwork.com. So if you just go to the wholenessnetwork.com, you'll find that as you scroll down, where you can get that for free. And coming up in February, I run a class called Strive to Thrive. It's going to be an 8-week class, and it's all about authenticity. We got to learn where we're actually at, and we think we know where we're at, but we got to understand where we're at, and then we got to go back and understand where we have been, and then we get to play and figure out where we want to go. And it's been really fascinating to see people have lots of aha moments about understanding who they really are on a deep level and being okay with themselves on a deep level. So that's where I'm at these days.
Very cool. So finally, I'd like you to leave us with a final thought, a phrase, a word, anything, just to wrap it all up.
Okay. Well, I think I'll do the word wholeness. Wholeness is two concepts. It's being complete, and at the same time working toward that wholeness or that completion. So it's a little bit of a complexity there, because it kind of contradicts each other. But I think that's the beautiful thing about us as human beings. We are complex beings, and we are to own our authenticity and our wholeness, and be striving for it and growth and moving forward at the same time.
Oops. All right, stay up. There you are. That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much, Mechelle. Get in touch with her. Everything that we talked about today is going to come together for you if you go onto the website and see what Mechelle has to offer. I want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And I also want to thank you, my audience, for joining us today. If you want to make a comment or a question, go to my Balanced Life by Debbie Facebook page or YouTube channel and get involved in the conversation there. And in the meantime, keep going out. Wait, before I say this, I have to let you know I'm not going to be here in December, so I want to wish you all happy holidays. We're in the end of November 2023, and I'm taking a break in December to be with family and friends and travel a little bit. So I will be back the second week of January. So look for all new shows second week of January. In the meantime, check me out on my YouTube channel and keep going out and finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. All right, everybody, bye. We'll see you in January.